When the column spacing of two adjacent columns is less or SBC of soil is less, then the isolated footing of these columns may overlap. This leads to the construction of combined footing. When the columns are subjected to relatively lighter load, then this simple slab type combined footing can be used. But if the loads are heavy, then to economize the material, beam slab type combined footing can be used. If the peripheral column is on the property line, then the position of column is at edge of the footing as shown here. In this case, it is preferred to combine that footing with nearby closely spaced column footing. Otherwise, we can also connect the eccentric footing with adjacent column footing by a beam called as strap beam. This arrangement helps in distributing the weight of eccentrically loaded column footing to adjacent footing. This type of footing is called as strap footing. In this video, we are going to design a rectangular slab type combined footing for two columns C1 and C2. Column C1 has dimensions of 300 by 300 mm and carries an axial service load of 500 kN. Column C2 is 400 by 400 mm and it carries a heavier axial load of 700 kN. The spacing between the two columns measured center to center is 3.4 meter. The soil beneath has a safe bearing capacity of 150 kN per meter square. For materials, we will be using M20 grade concrete and Fe415 grade steel. With this data in hand, let us move step by step through the design process. Let us begin our solution with the load calculations. The axial load transferred to the footing from column C1 is 500 kN, while column C2 carries 700 kN. To account for the self-weight of the footing, we will assume it as a 10% of the total column load. That works out to be 120 kN. Adding this to the column load, the total load acting on the footing becomes 1320 kN. In next step, let us get the size of footing. The required area of the combined footing is calculated by dividing the total load by the safe bearing capacity of the soil. This results in 8.8 square meters. We assume the width of footing B as 1.8 meter and the length L as 5 meter. The total area of the footing provided is 9 square meters, which is greater than the required area. Next, let us compute the footing projections from the column faces. Let A1 be the outside projection from the center of the column C1 and A2 from the center of column C2. These projections should be such that the centroid of the footing coincides with the center of gravity of the total column loads, ensuring uniform upward pressure. So, let x bar be the distance of the center of gravity of the column loads from the center of column C1. This can be calculated using equation shown here. In this, x1 and x2 are the distances of w1 and w2 from center of column C1 respectively. Here, x1 is equal to 0 while x2 is equal to 3.4 meter. After computation, we obtained x bar equal to 2 meters. Based on x bar, let us get the value of projections A1 and A2. We have the total distance of A1 plus x bar equal to L by 2. Therefore, A1 can be computed as 0.5 meter. Similarly, we can get the A2, which is equal to 1.1 meter. After finalizing the proportioning of the footing, we calculate the net upward pressure P0. This is obtained by dividing the total load from the columns by the area of the footing. Substituting the values, we get P0 equal to 133.33 kilonewtons per square meter. Next, we compute the net upward pressure per meter length W by multiplying P0 with the width of the footing B. This gives us 240 kilonewtons per meter, which will be used in further computations of shear force and bending moment. Due to upward soil pressure, the footing bends along its longitudinal direction, as you can see in the figure. So, let us calculate the shear forces and bending moments at key points for this longitudinal bending. Using sign convention for positive shear force as left up and right down, and positive bending moment as left clockwise and right anticlockwise. We will begin with the shear force computation. At the start of the footing, the shear force is 0. Just to the left of the column C1, the shear force is 120 kilonewtons. Immediately to the right of the column C1, it increases to 380 kilonewtons. Moving to column C2, the shear force just to the left is 436 kilonewton. Immediately to the right of the column C2, it is 264 kilonewtons. Finally, at the end of the footing, the shear force returns to 0. Next, let us determine the distance between the center of column C1 and the point where the shear force becomes 0. This distance works out to be 1.585 meters. Next, let us compute the bending moments at the key locations of the footing. At the start of the footing, the bending moment is 0 kilonewton meters. At the column C1, the sagging moment is 30 kilonewton meter. At column C2, the sagging moment increases to 145 kilonewton meters. At the end of the footing, the bending moment once again drops back to 0. The maximum hogging bending moment occurs at the point of zero shear force. Therefore, this value is calculated as 271 kilonewton meters. Now, let us look at the bending moments at some additional critical points. At the outer face of column C1, the sagging moment is 15 kilonewton meters. At the outer face of the C2, the sagging moment is 97 kilonewton meters. Next, let us determine the points of contraflexures in the bending moment diagram. We will begin with the first point of contraflexures located at distance x from the center of column C1. To find this value, we calculate the moment of all forces acting to the left of the point about x and set the equation equal to 0. Solving the quadratic equation gives us two possible values of the solution. First, 0.081 meters and second, 3.086 meters. Therefore, the first point of contraflexures occurs at 0.081 meters to the right of the center of column C1. Using second value for the solution, 3.086, we get the second point at 0.314 meters to the left of the center of the column C2. Now, let us compute the shear forces at these points. At the first point of contraflexure, the shear force is 360.56 kilonewtons, while at the second point, the shear force is 360.64 kilonewtons. After getting bending moment and shear force, we will compute the required effective depth of the footing for maximum hogging moment, using expression of clause G1.1c of IS 456. In this equation, we need the ultimate bending moment. To calculate this, multiply the bending moment by the load factor of 1.5. Doing so gives us a value of 406.5 kilonewton meters. Next, we use the value of XU max by D from clause 38.1 for Fe415 steel along with the footing width B equal to 1.8 meters. By substituting all these values and solving, the required effective depth comes out to be 286 mm. Now, Assume the total depth of the footing as 400 mm. Using 60 mm of effective cover to reinforcement, the effective depth available is 340 mm. Now let us check whether the effective depth is adequate for the two-way or punching shear criteria. According to the IS code, the critical section for two-way shear lies at a distance of d by 2 from the periphery of the column. For this check, we will consider the column C2, which is carrying higher load. So, the critical section for punching shear is marked as ABCD around column C2 as shown in the figure. The area of this section ABCD works out to be 0.5476 square meter. Next, the punching shear force at column C2 is calculated as the column load minus the total upward pressure. Substituting the values and solving, we obtained 627 kilonewtons. To find the ultimate shear force, we apply the load factor of 1.5. This gives us a final value of 940.5 kilonewtons. Next, let us compute the punching shear stress denoted as tau v. It is computed by dividing the ultimate shear force by the cross-sectional area. The cross-sectional area is calculated as the perimeter of the critical section ABCD multiplied by the effective depth. Here, the perimeter of the critical section is 2960 mm and the effective depth is 340 mm. After solving, the two-way shear stress comes out to be 0.93 newtons per square mm. As per clause 31.6.3, the calculated two-way shear stress at the critical section shall not exceed Ks multiplied by tau c. Now, Ks is defined as 0.5 plus beta c, where beta c is the ratio of the short side to the long side of the column. In our case, this gives Ks equal to 1.5, but Ks should always be less than or equal to 1. So we take Ks equal to 1. Next, tau c is given by 0.25 times the square root of fck. Substituting values, we get tau c equal to 1.118 Newton per square mm. Therefore, the allowable two-way shear strength Ks into tau c is 1.118 Newton per mm square. This value is greater than the calculated shear stress tau v. Hence, we can say that the effective depth is adequate against two-way or punching shear. In the upcoming parts of the video, we will learn the remaining steps for design of combined footing. This includes design for bending tension in the longitudinal direction, one-way shear check, the design of column strips in this transverse direction, and the preparation of the final reinforcement placement drawing. You can find the links to the next videos in the description below. If you like this video, then share your thoughts in comment section, subscribe this channel and press the bell icon to get the notification of such interesting videos for visual and simplified learning of various civil engineering topics.